Tonight on Capitol Hill, a tense showdown unfolded during a Senate hearing as Senator Chris Van Hollen pressed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on whether the administration is complying with a unanimous Supreme Court order involving the controversial case of Abrago García.
Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Secretary, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And I was glad to see in your recent testimony that you reaffirmed your obligations to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I understand you had an exchange with Senator Murphy on the Abrago García case. And so I'm just going to put the question directly to you. Are you or DHS doing anything to comply with the 9-0 Supreme Court order to facilitate his return to the United States? Just yes or no.
This administration is following all federal court orders.
Madam Secretary, this is a simple
question.
question.
It's the president's prerogative on conversations that happen with the president of El Salvador.
I ask a simple question. We have a limited amount of time. I just asked you, Madam Secretary, whether or not you or the Department of Homeland Security are taking any action to facilitate the 9-0 Supreme Court decision to facilitate his return. This is a very simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders
to
make sure that we
So you are, because the court ordered that you facilitate his return, so you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question, but what I would tell you is that we are following court orders and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
Madam Secretary.
It's alarming to me because he's a human smuggler.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to have to reclaim
and a terrorist, and he's not a U.S. citizen. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and he's home. If he were to come back
Madam
here,
Secretary,
we would take him immediately
all right,
back to
I'm going to have
Salvador.
to, Madam Secretary, you should know a couple facts then, which is, number one, in 2019, the immigration court said that he should not be returned to El Salvador because it would put his life in danger. The Trump administration at the time did not appeal that decision. After that, he got a work permit and was working legally in the United States of America. This is also why the district court and the appellate court and the Supreme Court have ruled as they have. I suggest that rather than make these statements here, that you and the Trump administration make them in court under oath, because despite what you just said, the federal district court whose judge is hearing this case right now said, and I'm quoting, that the administration has provided no evidence linking Abrago García to MS-13 or any other terrorist activity. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for his due process rights.
Yes, you are, sir. You've
no,
been vouching
no,
for
Madam
him.
Secretary, with
respect.
respect.
I would suggest that you defend and stand alongside the victims of illegal crime.
This is political rhetoric.
The citizens who live here and are United States Americans. I would suggest you advocate for them as hard as you do for
Madam Secretary, I know you're doing a political speech here.
I'm
I
not,
get it.
sir.
I'm asking questions of law. No, you're just spewing rhetoric.
I truly believe this. I
Well, you're
truly believe
spewing
this
rhetoric.
as an American.
Let me ask you this. Do you agree with Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores that, I'm quoting, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." End of quote.
Sir, we are utilizing every due process tool that this Congress has afforded us. The Congress decides what due process is appropriate for every situation. Expedited removal is a due process that you have afforded us that we are utilizing. The Alien Enemies Act.
I'm going to reclaim my
time,
time, Madam Secretary.
So we are giving due process and using the tools
Madam
that
Secretary,
this Congress has given us.
This is really, I'm asking sort of simple questions of law, and simple questions like, are you complying with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision? And you seem to think that's some kind of trick question. Let me ask you this. You were down at CCOT in El Salvador, and you said, and that, I'm quoting, "It is one of the tools in the toolkit that we will use." And it's well known that the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador to keep these individuals, including those who the U.S. courts have determined were illegally taken out of the country in violation of their due process rights. Have you seen the grant document between the United States and the government of El Salvador with respect to the CCOT?
It's important that everybody knows the consequences of what happens for their actions in this country. When you break the law and you're a member of a foreign terrorist organization,
Madam Secretary, I asked you a
there are
question. Have you
consequences
seen
to
the
that.
document? This is not hard.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And what are the provisions of the document? So do you know what entities in El Salvador are receiving the funds?
I'm sure you can see this document as well and have looked at it for evaluation.
I'm glad you raised that, Madam Secretary, because I sent you a letter along with many of my colleagues here on April 8th asking for, among other things, that document. Will you respond to the letter that we sent?
I will respond to your letter.
Thank you. Can I get some sense of when?
We will take a look at it. I don't remember seeing your letter yet, but I will certainly take a look at it.
Well, it's been there over a month.
The senator's time has expired.
No, Madam Chair.
Senator Kennedy?
Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary.
Secretary, I have some additional questions.
No,
related
sir.
to
That's up
fire
to you
academy.
to manage that time. Senator Kennedy.
Madam
Well, I
Secretary.
need a little help from a chair that respects the members of the
Madam
committee. I'm sorry, Madam
Secretary.
Chair. This is
If you're following along, make sure you subscribe, because this story is a masterclass in constitutional authority, immigration law, and political messaging colliding in real time. At the center of the clash is a simple question with major implications. Is the Department of Homeland Security taking any steps to follow the Supreme Court's 9-0 ruling requiring the government to facilitate Garcia's return to the United States? Van Hollen pushed for a direct yes or no. Noem offered a broader, more guarded statement, insisting that the administration is complying with all federal court orders. But the moment became contentious when she shifted from procedure to accusation, labeling Garcia a terrorist and questioning the senator's motives. This exchange matters, not just because of the political theater, but because it highlights a deeper misunderstanding many Americans have about immigration law. So if you're watching and learning something new, don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns like this. Here's the actual legal backdrop. In 2019, an immigration judge ruled that returning Garcia to El Salvador could put his life at risk. That ruling was not appealed by the Trump administration, which means it stood as valid law. Afterward, Garcia received a work permit and legally held employment in the United States. That's an important detail because it underscores how immigration decisions often depend on a combination of judicial rulings, administrative discretion, and due process protections. It's not as simple as a label or a claim, and that is precisely why Van Hollen kept bringing the discussion back to the courts. We also learned that a federal judge currently reviewing the case found that the administration had presented no evidence linking Garcia to MS-13 or any terrorist activity. Again, this doesn't mean the judge is declaring Garcia harmless. It means the government has not supplied the necessary evidence within the legal process. That difference is the backbone of due process. If this is the kind of nuance you want more of, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss these kinds of deep dives. The conversation escalated as Van Hollen attempted to anchor the discussion in constitutional law, citing Justice Scalia's statement in Reno v. Flores that the Fifth Amendment guarantees due process to non-citizens in deportation proceedings. This is a foundational principle of American jurisprudence, yet it is frequently misunderstood or mischaracterized in political debates. Non-citizens do not have all the rights of citizens, but they absolutely have constitutional protections when the government seeks to detain, deport, or deny them liberty. It's one of the defining features of the U.S. legal system. Noem responded by saying DHS uses every due process tool that Congress provides, which is technically accurate, but doesn't answer whether those tools are being deployed in this specific case, the very issue the senator was trying to pin down. What we saw was more than a disagreement. It was a collision between legal process and political framing. Van Hollen framed his questions around constitutional duty and judicial authority. Noem framed her answers around public safety and political accountability. And in that clash, viewers were left with a clearer view of how government institutions sometimes talk past each other even when they're discussing the same set of facts. If you want more coverage that cuts through the noise and explains not just what happened, but why it matters, be sure to subscribe. These debates shape policy, influence public perception, and determine how the rule of law is understood in real life, and we'll be here to break it all down for you.